Hello and welcome to this edition of the Florida Writer Podcast. Today I have with me Rik Feeney. Rik, welcome to the show, and can you offer a 60-second elevator pitch about who you are?
60 seconds. Goodness, I need about a week or two to tell everybody. But the main thing I am is a book coach consultant. I help people learn how to write, market, and publish books. I'm an author myself. I got almost 82 books out there now, a bunch of them traditionally published and most of them independently published. I'm also the group leader of the Orlando, Florida Writers Association. We meet once a month and usually have 30 to 40 people there with great speakers on all topics.
I love that you're a group leader. What type of, you say all types of topics, and how do you plan your schedule?
Last month, I didn't do too good a job because I forgot until the day before I needed a speaker. But fortunately, I had a little talk on how to write articles and press releases, so that went over pretty well. Next month, actually, we've got Herb Sennett coming in to do a talk about writing books for Hollywood. So that'll be cool. And the month after that, I have Balia Keeley coming in to talk about memoir. Each month we try and get, a publisher, an editor, an agent, somebody in the business, authors that have done well, even authors that's their first time out, tell us what your experience is.
Speaking of first time out, how did you get started writing?
Well, I was a bad boy and I got punished.
And you were forced to write books.
No, what it was is my mom was a speech pathologist and she taught all of my sisters and brothers how to read by a fourth grade level by the time we were in kindergarten. So basically we were troublemakers. We read everything in the room in a week, and they wouldn't let us bring in paperbacks or other stuff because that would embarrass the other children. So I had no other choice but to be a snarky little prankster and get in trouble. But then at 10 years old, I got caught telling a lie. My parents, they never bluffed when they gave punishments. So my punishment was 1 year without TV. And during that year, I would get the Scholastic magazine and I would literally check off every single book. And then I would sit in the living room and read. And then it got so bad that when I went to school, I would open up a math book and I'd have a paperback in the middle. I just read my way all the way through high school and never paid attention to a teacher ever, because I'm going to tell you, the power of reading is phenomenal. I mean, I finished with a B average, and my philosophy now is I think if you teach kids to love reading, they're going to educate themselves for the rest of their lives.
That's absolutely true. It's like what they say, if you teach a man to fish, he'll never be hungry.
Right.
You teach him to read and they'll be able to know everything. That's maybe a scary thought, but you do a lot of your own writing, obviously 82 books. Is that what I heard you say?
Yeah, 82 so far.
And I imagine
before I kick the bucket, I want to get to 100.
Well, you're close. I don't know if that's a good goal or not, but you might want to go to 150.
When I get to 99, I'll take a look at my quality of life and okay, maybe 10 more.
So what genres do your books cover?
Primarily, the old saw that we're told, write what you know. And so I had started off, my first publishing experience was actually at 10 years old. I wrote the Courier-Times in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, had a little program called the Junior Reporters Club. And if you were under 18, you could submit articles or stories. Well, I got 2 stories published, and my mom told me that the subscription base in that area was 250,000 people. So immediately I had thoughts of world domination. I can get into their heads with my writing and so I wrote a bunch of newspaper articles, magazine articles, and then one day I think it was just a matter of being annoyed. I was a gymnastics coach for 30 years, and the parents were driving me crazy because they always were asking the same questions and this and that. So finally, I sat down and I wrote a book called Gymnastics, a Guide for Parents and Athletes. It ended up eventually with, gee, I can't even remember. What is the name of that company? I'm really drawing a blank. But it's one of the big dogs. And so basically what happened was it also got sponsored by Spalding Sports Company. And so I thought, wow, this is cool. And it ended up being one of the best-selling books on the sport. And then I was tapped to ghostwrite/write 7 training manuals that McGraw-Hill, that was it. McGraw-Hill is the name of the company. But then I wrote these books that were training manuals that coaches had to use to get certified. Then I wrote 60 more books on the sport of gymnastics. And I thought, okay, and it was working out because as a independent publisher, I could put prices of like $35 up to $300 on different products and make a chunk of change.
I imagine during Olympic season, it's probably better sellers than.
Exactly right. It goes the Olympics, because gymnastics is the #1 viewed sport in the Summer Olympics. You get tons of sales, but then as you get farther away from the Olympics, second or third year away, they start to drop off, and then hopefully come back up again the next year, which is nice. But that's when I started looking around and everybody, how are you publishing all these books? And that's when I kind of got into, here in Florida Writers Association popped up. And I started going to meetings and different ones in different towns and listening to all the experts around. And eventually our group leader moved on and they were looking somebody. I was just supposed to be a temporary fill-in, but I ended up 15 years later, I'm still there.
Well, we appreciate your service. Thank you. And I know the Orlando group has a very dynamic attendance. So that's really, really cool.
Yeah, I think we got a combination of things. We're in a really good spot, very central in Orlando. Orlando is really strong with writers groups. There's probably right around me a half a dozen FWA groups, and there's also meetup groups and independent, and a lot of libraries run. So writing is really a strong topic in Orlando.
Well, what's your biggest tip for writers?
Don't get overwhelmed. First of all, I think that's a tip more for when they're ready to publish. What I find is a lot of writers look into, okay, I want to self-publish, or I want to traditionally publish. And I think the rules that I use are: 1, there is no right way to write a book. 2, there's no right way to publish a book. And 3, there's no right way to market a book. There's only the way that's right for you. And so some people may use, when they're writing, a legal pad and a pen. Other people may dictate into a digital recorder. Some people just, like for me, I have to use a keyboard. I kind of talk through my fingers and it filters and changes by the time it gets into the computer. So the question is, what's most comfortable for you? And that's what you should do. And then when you get to the part where it starts to get overwhelming, I mean, that's what FWA is all about. We've got conferences, we've got mini conferences coming up all over the place. We've got a yearly conference the 3rd week in October, where I think we had 500 people last year, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
But
yes.
We have tons of speakers that are going to answer your questions. And there's agents and everybody. You get a chance to, okay, here's where I'm at. You guys help me. Where do I want to go?
What's been your most rewarding moment as a writer?
I think it's cliche, but the first time you're traditionally published is kind of cool. It's like, okay, oh my God, somebody else. I mean, you're validated by somebody else. But then I realized the even better moment was when I started making big money independently publishing. the big checks way bigger than what I made as a traditional published, author. So yeah, money. I love it.
That's good. That's good. Not everyone gets to make money as an author. So I imagine the fact that you have 82 books with your name on it helps.
I got to tell you, honestly, people think that means it actually about 6 of the books are really the money makers.
Oh,
Everything
wow.
else is like a little stream of income, a residual stream. Some months it pays my cell phone bill, some months it pays the car bill, but it just keeps trickling in. But there are 6 books that I really focus on that make the money.
You are now working with the publishing side of writing, and we've gone through a huge shift in the past 10 years to self-publishing. Indie industry has been embraced of late. So what do you think the biggest change has been that you've noticed?
Well, I think basically last year, just as a statistic, 1,146,000 books were independently published, self-published authors, whereas the traditional publishers only put out between 300 and 400,000 books. So, and we've gone from the big 6, now we're down to the big 5, may go lower. And I think the reason for that is that people like to express themselves in their own way. Whereas in traditional, they have pretty much a guideline. Look, we want 100,000 words. It's going to be a 6x9 book. It's going to be priced here. And whereas independently publishing, you can publish a 10-page book, sell it for 99 cents. You can publish poetry and not have to worry about reaching the masses to make it worthwhile for a traditional publisher. There's a lot of great content coming out there, and I just love the stories about people like John Locke or Hugh Howey or Amanda Hawking, who are suddenly, making zillions of dollars from their work, but they're putting out what they believe in, what they want.
Now, heart definitely shows in a lot of these independent books.
It does.
All right, Rik, we are going to shift gears and we are moving to our rapid fire section. I'm going to ask you 3 questions that don't have anything to do with writing. Are you ready?
Do I have lifelines?
You won't need a lifeline.
Call a friend or,
I guess if you're desperate.
All right.
All right. Do you have any stickers on your car?
Not one.
Not one?
Not one. I like my car. I made my car dealer pay for putting their little tag of their dealership on there. It's like, what do you think you're doing? It's like, if I buy a Rolex watch, I don't expect Kmart to put their logo on the watch too. It's like, forget it. You want it? You got to pay me $1,000 a year to advertise.
Very interesting. I hadn't thought of that. Maybe I ought to try that. All right. Coffee or tea?
Iced coffee.
Iced coffee. All right. You put whipped cream or anything on it?
No, just regular light coffee, but little 1 or 2 Splendas and some half and half.
Is that like your writing ritual, or you just drink it in the morning?
Well, I fell into it. I used to always drink. See, I was the only one in my family that could make coffee the way my mom liked it. So it became my job as from kindergarten on, make mom a cup of coffee every morning. And I would always sip it to taste it, see if it tastes right. And then I started, first I thought, oh, it's terrible. But then I started to like it. And then I started to make myself a cup of coffee, which my mom was not aware of, and drink it. And of course, my teachers were very aware, as I'm bouncing off the walls and causing trouble. But then one day I just happened to not, oh man, I don't have time to drink this coffee. I didn't want to pour it out, so I put it in the refrigerator. And came back and I tried it and cold and wow, this actually tastes even better.
So you don't need to go to Starbucks and get one of their cold pressed.
Nope. I'm not spending $5 for, a cup of coffee. If I'm going to spend $5, I'm actually going to go and buy an ebook somewhere. I love to read. I have probably 600 books on my cell phone alone.
Wow. Wow. I've been reading a lot on my cell phone, and I can't decide if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's very convenient.
Well, you have to keep in mind that new thing I just learned at a seminar, 67% of all books are now being bought via cell phone.
That's a lot. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's like, okay.
All right, Rik, what's your favorite time of year?
I think right now, obviously, I live in Florida, and June, July, August, September, just way too hot, way too muggy. During that time of year, I live in my car, my condo, and Costco, anywhere that has air conditioning. September to November is okay, but November to about April, beautiful. It's cool, beautiful days, really sunny and nice. So I think this time of year is great.
Rik, I am so glad you were able to join us.
Thank you for inviting me. I had a good time.
I will say thank you for listening. Allison now. Boom. That was easy.
Piece of cake.
Piece of cake. That's right. That's right.
Rik Feeney is the author of several books, including Writing, Books for Fun, Fame, and Fortune. His latest book, Editing Basics for Authors and Indie Publishers, is soon to be released, Book Marketing Basics for Authors on a Budget, as well as the upcoming memoir, What Are Little Boys Made Of? Rik is a book coach, book cover designer, and publishing consultant. He also talks at writers' conferences and seminars and is the leader of the Orlando, Florida Writers Association group. Rik can be found at rikfeeney.com. RICKFEENEY.com. For more information on the Florida Writers Association, discover us on the web at floridawriters.net.